So in this video I am going to be talking about the coronary arteries. Now before we do so, I'll just do a quick recap of the structure of the heart, because in the last video I showed you a very simple diagram of the heart. So I'll be showing you the heart in an animated version which looks like a real one. So we'll label the parts which we do know. So this would be the Vena Cava, which is deoxygenated blood coming from the body. This is another Vena Cava, which is deoxygenated blood coming from the head. So blood enters into the right atrium, not left. Right is left and left is right, as I told you in the last video. When it fills up, the right atrium then pumps it to the right ventricle. The right ventricle, when it is full of blood, it is then when it pumps it through here, and this artery takes it to the lungs, and I'll tell you in a minute. And so basically this, or the right ventricle, has a thicker muscle or wall of muscle than the right atrium and the left atrium. We said that the ventricles have thicker muscles of wall than the atriums, and we'll come to that in a second. So when blood is pumped through, it is pumped through this artery over here called pulmonary artery. This carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and in the lungs blood becomes oxygenated by oxygen diffusing into capillaries from alveoli. When it is in the blood, it diffuses from the blood into the red blood cells and combines with a pigment in the red blood cells known as hemoglobin, and therefore hemoglobin then becomes oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so then it's not shown over here, but then blood is taken back to by the pulmonary veins. It's not written, but I'll just draw, and these would be like the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins would then fill the left atrium. I also get confused. The left atrium, which is over here with blood, when it's full, then blood is then therefore pumped to the left ventricle, and the left ventricle then pumps it through the aorta, which then goes to the rest of the body. Now just one reminder is that the left ventricle, which is this, I suppose, it would be situated somewhere here. The left ventricle has the thickest muscle out of all. It even has a thicker muscle, a wall of muscle, than the right ventricle, because the left ventricle has to pump blood to the body, while the right ventricle has to pump blood to the lungs. Okay, so now that was a quick recap of what we took in the structure of the heart. Now I'll just erase these black lines and we move on to coronary arteries. Okay, so we know that, as we said, that the heart heart is made of a special type of muscle known as cardiac muscle. So this muscle over here is known as cardiac muscle, and in some areas it is very thick, such as the left ventricle. So therefore, how does muscle or oxygen and nutrients move in? It moves in through these over here. You see, these like branching things which come out. These are what we call coronary arteries. This, and there's another one over here. So these two are coronary arteries. Now you guys might be thinking, why do we need coronary arteries when the heart is full of blood? Now there is a problem with the heart, is, as we said, that the cardiac muscle is thick in some areas, in some areas. So therefore, oxygen and nutrients wouldn't be able to pass through the thick wall of cardiac muscle quickly enough. It wouldn't be able to diffuse through the wall of cardiac muscle quickly enough. So there are reasons. So it's because it's really thick, and blood is also at a high pressure. So therefore it can't be transferred from the heart into the heart muscle, which is cardiac muscle. Therefore there are coronary arteries, and these, as you can see, this one is branching out from the aorta. This one is, it seems as if it's coming out from the pulmonary artery, but we said that the pulmonary artery carries blood that doesn't have a high content of oxygen. Therefore this would also be somehow linked to the aorta, which carries oxygenated blood. So these branch out from the aorta, Why? Because blood from the aorta contains a high content of oxygen, and glucose or nutrients is also high, so high concentration of nutrients in that blood. So therefore these carry these things over here, they carry oxygen and nutrients, and therefore supply the heart muscle with these. Now why does it supply it with these two things? Why do the coronary arteries supply the heart muscle with oxygen and nutrients, Now there, it's a one-word answer, but you won't write it in a proper IGCSE question, and the main reason is respiration. Now, as you know, the heart muscles need energy, and when an organism respires, or what they need in order for respiration to take place, or at least aerobic respiration, they need oxygen and they need glucose. And one of the nutrients that when blood is pumped from the aorta contains is glucose. It has a high content of glucose. Therefore oxygen, or the heart needs oxygen and glucose. So if you write a balanced equation, it takes oxygen and glucose to form, through a series of chemical reactions and with the help of enzyme, they form the waste products of water, carbon dioxide, and the last one, which is the most important, ATP. This is basically energy, and the literal meaning of ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so a hard word, but you don't need to know this. So it needs oxygen and glucose in order to produce energy, which can therefore make the muscle contract and relax, which pushes blood, which when it relaxes its muscles, blood comes into both of the atrium and ventricles, and when it contracts, both of the ventricles pump blood. So it's like synonymous. It's synonymous. The pumping and contraction and relaxation is synonymous, even though they're on different sides and they pump oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. They contract their ventricles at the same time and relax their muscles at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video about why hearts have coronary arteries, and in the next video I'm going to be talking about what happens if coronary arteries are blocked. So please do like, share, subscribe, and comment.